Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Hilary Bilbrey, co-host and co-founder of the DH Effect. Hilary, great seeing you and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Anytime I see Jesse Johnson on my schedule to have a conversation, I'm excited.
Hey, I know it's going to be 30 minutes to an hour of engaging conversation and a lot of laughter. So
I'm in.
feelings mutual. That's fantastic. So Hilary, for the unfortunate people that are watching this that haven't had the privilege of meeting you, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career? Typically, it's like your career in equipment finance, but we're going a little outside of the industry this week. So while you're in equipment finance, sort of?
Sort of. I mean, I'm sort of everywhere, nowhere, allwheres. I don't know. We'll see. I'm in the business of people. So wherever there's people, there I am. So really, I mean, the co-founder and also co-host of the Tide at Heart Effect, the DH Effect. So that's a company that has been founded in order to really be able to show up in coaching aspects, speaking aspects, mediation, negotiation, facilitation, you name it. But really where there are people problems, we help companies be able to get to peak performance, PEQ, which is your positive intelligence quotient and your emotional intelligence quotient. Because anytime that you get a bunch of people together, it's not the processes that are the problem. I mean, yes, of course, we need to have good processes that are in place, but it's oftentimes the issues we have with people that hold us back from really achieving our fullest potential. So that's what I get to do, is speak on that, coach through that, and help people get to their fullest potential.
And you do all of that with a beautiful smile on your face, as opposed.
You know what? Life is so good. And really, I mean, when we boil it down, Jesse, like truly, I was sitting in a moment today. I just to share a quick story. I was sitting in this moment today, a team that I'm working with, they're oncologists that are developing, literally trying to cure cancer. And they're revolutionizing the treatment of cancer right now. And I'm working with this team and they've been a little bit like, we're researchers. Now it's been about 6 months. And this morning they had this exchange where they're all sharing resources and I'm not doing anything but watching them be brilliant. And they're sharing resources of, this is how you're compassionate and this is how you do this and this is how you do this. And my heart is about to burst with joy. So imagine that is my job, is literally to drop something in so people see their own brilliance and then get out of the way.
No, I know. I've seen it in real motion when you're like, by the way, I'm going to pick on you. And I'm like, oh no, like, don't do that. But you have a way of getting it out. You have the way of getting the best out of people. So
thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you.
And then, so that was a little bit of the DH effect. Do you mind just kind of just discussing a little bit further in regards to your organization, Hilary?
Sure. It's really interesting. I started doing coaching and things about 20 years ago. We had our own family travesty. If anybody has heard me speak in public, they'll know behind the scenes of that. But it really launched me into trying to do work where people can truly show up for themselves and others and feel anchored to who they are at a heart level. And so pre-COVID, just before COVID, I was taking an entrepreneurial class with this lovely group of humans, and I got to present. And when I was done presenting, and it was on personal brand, how do you really declare not who you are in the business world, but who you are everywhere at a soul level? And how do we really engage with seeing if there's alignment in there? So I was doing that presentation that day, and at the end, this amazingly gorgeous human, like, when someone walks up to you and you can just feel the aura of awesome, she walked up to me and she's like, we're going on a date. And I was like, wait, what? She said, yes, we are now each other's people. I'm like, okay. And so we did. And it was Sonia Montiel, who's my co-founder, my partner as well. And we started talking. She comes out of academia and then went into college counseling, helping families, and really approaches it from a heart level. And we had this amazing conversation where we bonded so tightly. We said, we should model how to have authentic conversations. So the podcast was born. And then once we did that, people said, we need to learn to have authentic conversations at work. And they started bringing us in to do things here and there. And little by little, 3 years later, we have this business where we get to go in and help companies and parents. We work with individuals and parents as well, but it is really because, quite frankly, who can't use some work with really seeing their own brilliance and then making sure their life is aligned in a way where they're engaging people that they want to and is consistent with who they are.
Spot on. I know I could probably use a lot of work myself.
You know, Jesse, that's the thing is you always show up exactly as who you are, and you see so many amazing things. I mean, look at EF Cares in and of itself. The very fact that you met Laverne Gordon and said, wow, we can do more in domestic violence. I know we can do more. And that's the difference between people who show up with empathy and compassion. Empathy is, wow, that's really sad, Laverne. That's really sad. And then compassion is, wow, that is really sad, and we can do something. It's the insight to action. And that's really the decided heart effect, in our opinion, is when you have that decided heart moment, the DH effect. What that gets down to is, because I am deciding how I'm going to show up, I am going to live that out loud, and the people around me will feel the permissioning to do the same. So you create a ripple effect, and that's the DH effect.
I just learned that. That's fantastic and makes complete sense. So as you take on these projects, so you're 3 years old. I know some of the projects that you work on just based on some conversations, but big Fortune 100 companies down to individuals, like do you guys have a sweet spot, or is it more, because I'm assuming at this point in time, it's like you can almost pick and choose, which is fantastic, right? The projects you want to work on.
It's really interesting. That's such an interesting question, because everyone tells us we need to choose. So we do. We actually work in a couple of Fortune 100 companies, and then all the way, like you said, to individuals. And so it really isn't about the company and the size. It's about the team and the willingness and the champions. So we really have to have a champion who's willing to be humble enough to engage in the idea of taking a true look at how you're showing up, which is where the positive intelligence comes in. We really work hard to how can we do this without judgment, and lay open the idea of, let's start at the beginning. Are we showing up the way we need to? Is our team showing up the way that we need to? And how does that impact the company and beyond in the community? And so anyone who's willing, but if somebody, I will tell you, a larger company that wants to, let's just go the entire thing wide, well, that's not sustainable. That it just isn't sustainable. So I will say that it starts with individuals and teams, and then it's the
That makes complete sense. I mean, and that's why we limit some of the EFC events to, I try to limit it to 60, because otherwise you're going to miss the mark.
You can't be authentic and have real connection unless you actually have the opportunity to sit across from that person. And we get people asking us all the time, well, are you going to automate this? And I always say no. I mean, I was trained as a teacher first. And so there is no way. I'll tell people too. I'll tell people, Jesse, I will say straight out, we can't do what you're asking, because it will not be the best product. And I can't stand
No, I mean, that's that. I mean, what I love about the entrepreneurial spirit is, anything's possible. But what I hate about it, where it's like, come on, I mean, is it repeatable? Yes, but it takes different things to get to the outcome. Nothing is going to be the same, because we're all different. Every situation's different.
100%. And if I started treating you like everybody else, then I'm not fully present, and I'm not actually getting to the core and the heart of what the issues could be. Rarely when someone brings me in, Jesse, is the problem what they think it is. And so that's what's really fun, is I get to be the mechanic. You bring your car into your favorite mechanic, and you're like, oh, here's what the problem is. And he goes, let me listen. And he hears what the noise is behind the noise.
Sure.
He says,
Sure.
no, here's what actually is going on.
So as you go into these, and doing this for 3 years, have you ever gotten to the first day and like, this is not going to work? I mean, have you fired clients because they haven't, they're just not buying in? So I can imagine, I mean, it's not easy conversations.
Mm,
that you need to have, and people aren't always going to be receptive because of pride and ego.
mm.
So, and any thoughts there, Hillary?
So actually, I've never fired somebody on day one, but I have not engaged because I've really, there's going to be discussion beforehand and I'll know beforehand
Okay.
and they'll know
Okay.
ahead of time because I'll have said, this is what has to happen on your end. And if you're not showing up authentically, then we can't do this. It's just not going to work. And so usually I'm pretty good. I've had once or twice, it's slipped through the cracks and I try and I have the conversations and I give the second chance. And then we get down to the end and, or not even the end, but into the process. And I'll say, this feels to me like I'm still trying to prove to you that what we're doing is worthwhile. And that's a waste of both of our times,
Sure.
so it really is. So I think it's probably best that you find someone else. Now, the funny thing is both of those times they came back and asked us to come back in.
No one likes to be told. No one likes to be refused service. I've kind of realized that too. Where people are like, "Oh yeah, we'd like you." Not interested. What do you
Yeah,
mean that's not interested? Well, I've seen the way your organization's ran for the last 15 years,
yeah,
and I really don't think that I'm the person that can actually have something go correctly.
right.
You talk about tell someone you're not interested in taking their money.
Yeah. But that's integrity,
Try to,
Jesse.
yeah, yeah,
You
it is. I just, it's just laughable
It is.
to me because you're just like, okay, I didn't realize this was actually, but it's a coaching world, right?
Well, it is because here's the thing is if you don't trust me, I mean, every single relationship is based on trust. If you don't trust what I'm doing, then I'm not for you. Go find someone that you can trust. And I don't say that in a mean way. I just mean that in a sincere way. You can't work with someone you don't trust.
Nope. And all you're going to do is sit there and provide all the facts to the best of your ability. At the end of the day, it's their decision.
That's right.
But yeah,
That's right. Agreed.
that's fantastic. And then, when you're in these, like building these teams, I guess let me take a step back. When you go to a new customer, when you're engaging for the first time, is that those first few exercises? I've been a part of one of them. I think it was like a dancing thing, which this
Dancing
does this
Queen.
doesn't dance too well. So
You
I
do.
think I
You do.
cha-cha'd in his place and pretended I was doing it. But regardless, like, do you change them up based on the type of companies that you're going into or the situation at hand?
Absolutely. There's certain things that I always do. I mean, I have the very first thing, and I did this with you as well. The very first thing that I do outside of a warmer. So the warmer changes depending on the group. And I
Okay.
do something, the faster I have to have you all have buy-in, the more crazy the first opening thing is, because I need the guard down, the risk taking up so that you're ready to go. So
Okay.
that's why I had you guys be
Okay.
dancing queens. But if it's a longer period of time, I might need to walk through the door a little slower. And so then
Okay.
I do different activities there too. And it also depends on the energy and where it sits with their day. Sorry, 1 second.
All right.
Because I have to be mindful of what the discussions are when I'm part of a day. So if I come in and they've just had conversations about cutting people or cutting funding or whatever, and then I'm part of team building, I'm really careful to understand what the whole day looks like. I can't just be like, oh, and shifting gears.
Yeah, and it's like, let's dance. Like,
Right.
no, because it'd be like, who's this person? She's showing. You mentioned empathy, right? You have to understand the mindsets. That's
That's
hmm,
right. That's right. But the most important thing, so I mean, the understanding or what sits around it, that I'm operating within a larger ecosystem is vital and important and necessary because it has to be fit for purpose. But then the very next thing, so it's the first official thing outside of the icebreaker, is establishing our community agreements. And I will do that anywhere I go. If I'm in and out, I let everybody borrow my community agreements. But if I'm going to be there long term, I help a company build their community agreements. And that's really the safety, the boundaries of how we operate with one another, because we all are in, you've heard me tell this story. I don't know if you want me to tell it, of how that community agreements came to be. Do
yeah,
we have
yeah,
time?
we have, of course, of course.
So I had a student in the back of my classroom when I first started out, when we all think we're so smart, 20, whatever I was. And I had 4 rules: respect me, respect yourself, respect others, and respect the work. You don't have to love Shakespeare. We're studying it today. So, respect it. I made a fatal error there. I thought, doesn't that sound perfect? That's like great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of a class, and this was actually American Lit class. And this is how imprinted it is, because this is over 20 years ago and it changed my life. This kid's in the back of the classroom. We'll call him Jose. Jose is in the back of the classroom and he's talking while I'm talking. Jose, be respectful. He lowers his voice, but he's still talking while I'm talking. Like, Jose, I said, be respectful. And that's a pretty serious voice. You don't get that from me a lot. He lowers his voice and keeps talking. Finally, I'm like, ever loving teacher brain, mom voice, all of it comes out. Jose, I said to be respectful. And he sits back in his chair and he raises his hand and he said, which killed me. Now you raise your hand. And he says,
Right.
Miss, I am so much nicer to you than I am my mom. What do you mean by respect? I was like, oh, like my brain he absolutely shook me, because I thought, I never told these kids what I meant by respect. I didn't paint the picture. And so we dropped our lesson that day, and we really got to the bottom of what respect meant to each of us. And guess what? It was different. And so then we also agreed that we were all going to recognize impact, but go to intention. We're going to assume good intent first. And with that, if someone crosses our boundary of respect, we're going to, first of all, be brave enough to tell them.
Sure.
And only then do we engage in something different if truly we've given them the opportunity and set those boundaries. So we go in right away with the companies and find out, what do you need to work together in a safe environment as a team? Because with psychological safety comes more innovation, retention, belonging, productivity. It all comes from that. You have to be able to take a risk. And so every company, there's a few things that repeat, but there's always something a little different, and they put their spin on it. And it's just beautiful. And there's no more than 5, but it's beautiful to see them come to an agreement on how they're going to show up for one another.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm slowly working through now that I kind of went out on my own, where it's okay, how do you just come in and just set like guiding principles, right? Where you're just like, hey, because if people don't have their guards down, they're just going to wall up, and then you're not going to get. And it's something that you've perfected. I'm slowly starting to get there. It's just when someone wants to say something, and I think that's where I can, like, my skill set. Like even last week when I was on site with somebody, it was like, hey, don't you remember this 10 years ago and we had this conversation? Then it's like, oh yeah, light bulb, and then they just kind of go. But anyhow, it's just trying to navigate that, because you never want to offend anybody. You don't want to call anyone out or put them in a bad situation, but it's like, how do you let them feel like they can speak freely? You know, even if what they say, everything you say has consequences,
Right.
but how do you at least get it out there?
No, and it's so valuable, and you're so good at this. You're always present for other people, and you ask them questions about themselves, because it's the connection point and feeling. If you don't show up, I always say this as a speaker, people will say to me, so what do I need to know about being a speaker? And I said, nothing. Show up as yourself. Like literally show up as yourself, because I don't have a lot of bells and whistles. I don't do somersaults. I don't do any of the things, but I hope that everyone there knows that I truly am showing up as myself and that I care about them. And I do. I'm not making that up. I don't want something out of them in the audience. I mean, if we do business together, fantastic. I want that. But I show up first with truly caring about who they are and taking care of them in that moment.
Nope, that's spot on and fantastic. And that was going to lead into my next question. I was going to ask you was like the speaking side of this. I mean, going from a teacher to I don't know, what's the biggest audience that you've given a presentation in front of, or I guess spoke in front of?
Let's see, not including online. I've had a couple bigger ones that were online, but not including online, probably about 1,000 or so. And I actually got to speak at Lambeau Field one time, and that was really cool. Not on the field, but in there. That was a pretty unique experience. But about 1,000 for
Okay.
speaking, but that's going to be your 20 to 30 minute keynote. I actually secretly enjoy, you did this so beautifully for EF Cares. You let me play and it was so wonderful and nice. What I love is to have the opportunity to not just bring awareness, but to then bring self-awareness, and then to have some practice in it so that everyone feels like they're actually leaving being able to do something actionable with it. So those groups of 40, 50, 60 are pretty fun, but anywhere, whoever your audience is, you just have to take a minute to think about how can we move from an insight into action in the period of time.
Yeah, I think of it's for me, if someone just asks me a question, I'm all about it. It's the anticipation of, or looking at the stage and then looking at the people, and then it's like, wait, I have to go up there and I have to talk to all them. Like it's
Yeah.
it's that mental mindset. I mean, what, public speaking still, I think, one of the number one phobias, if not the number one. So that's interesting.
Well, and Jesse, that really comes from our place of judge. Like our number one, and it's we judge ourselves, and so we assume other people are judging us, and then we get caught up in this, sabotage in our head of like, am I going to make them happy? Is it going to be okay? Da, 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 da. And it's going back and channeling, and this has taken me years. And am I always spot on? Nope. Sometimes I get done and I'm you win some and you learn some. And so there are times where I get done and I look back and I try to be the fascinated anthropologist without judging myself and say, okay, how could that be better? How can I serve in a different way? But honestly, for the most part, if you know your people ahead of time and you've asked the right questions, if you are truly trying to be of service, and if you show up authentically as yourself, caring for the people in the audience, that's all you can hope for. And when you're doing it in service, what are people going to judge you for trying to serve? And that's where I try to go with my mindset and just go, this isn't about me. This isn't about how I show up. It's about whether or not I provide the opportunity and the platform for everyone here to see how amazing they are. And that shifts
Sure,
everything for me.
sure. No, that makes complete sense. I think more of it's just kind of I think you get almost too excited where it's like your legs start moving and stuff, and you're just like, how do you like just calm down a little bit? Just
Yes.
calm down.
Well, the answer to that. The answer to that is, I love that you're so honest, and I love this because I think everyone who's listening to you right now is like, yes, how do you do that? So if you've ever read The Big Leap, there's a line that is in The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And he says, physiologically, if you would do a body scan of someone who is excited and who's afraid, physiologically it looks the same. You wouldn't know the difference if you looked at it as a picture. The difference is when you're nervous, when you're anxious, you're often holding your breath. And when you are not, when you're excited, you're breathing. And so the shift is breathing. It literally is that simple. You can change from fear to excitement. I mean, not if somebody's sitting there and coming at you with danger, but in something like we're talking
Sure.
about, truly by focusing on your breath.
Interesting. All right. I mean, because tequila is obviously not the answer. I've kind of learned that one too, where it's like, you know what, just take the edge off a little bit. I think that does a complete opposite, where you're just like, no, you're even more. Like,
I don't know. I enjoyed the glass of wine you handed me when I was speaking.
well, I mean, yeah.
I jokingly told this to Jesse and he made it happen. I was speaking at a spa one time and I walked in and they handed me a glass of champagne as I was getting ready to speak. And I said, I'm going to put this as a rider on every contract I have from now on. So I jokingly told that to Jesse. And as I went on stage at EF Cares, just handed me my glass of wine.
As much as people say I don't listen, I try to listen.
You listened so well. I was and it made it fun. I mean, that's the point. You are so playful, and that allows people to show up in a different way. And when did we when did we make it so it wasn't fun to be at work with each other anymore? When was it like the right way to do this is to not be playful? Like, play is where innovation happens. Play is where creativity happens. It's where connection
Sure,
happens.
sure. And it's getting people to be comfortable enough in that space, and that's what what you perfected. I just I just make fun of myself a lot, and I'm comfortable with everything that I can typically lower people's guards a little bit, where they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we can do this." Like, look at this guy. I mean, if he can talk, I can.
You're so good at putting people at ease. I mean, I must say the self-deprecation is like #1 way to get people at ease. And I always remind you about how amazing you are.
Oh, thank you, Hilary. Thank you. You would see me blushing probably, but I think I have good light here, so my face is going to turn a lot of red.
It's all
So
about the lighting.
kudos to that. Kudos to Arizona in the morning. So as equipment finance people are watching this, with you and Sonia, when you guys come on site, what value, besides what they're picking from here, why would an equipment finance organization benefit from bringing you ladies in?
Well, if they're looking to have a raised potential, to increase the potential that they see in their team, not just financially, but also from a performance aspect, from a speed aspect, we slow things down a little bit to get people on the same page so that then it ends up speeding up faster. So depending on what the market is, it's like, is it getting product to market faster? Maybe. Is it better customer service? Maybe. But it really is about getting the team so well oiled in what they're doing and how they're speaking and communicating and the protocols in place, and the ability to have the tools to have the difficult conversations in a way that still doesn't keep you spinning and churning and stuck, but rather moving forward to a place of process. You find that our teams find more belonging, the retention goes up, profitability, all of the things, and now can we track that directly back to us? No, we can't track it back to us directly, but we can say it's an interesting thing that occurs after we've been there.
No, that makes complete sense. So I mean, when you break down different equipment finance organizations, you have like the sales side, operations. Would you envision kind of you going in with just the heads of those divisions, or would it be like the actual sales team, then meet with the ops team, then credit, then docs, etc.?
So it really depends on what the situation is. And so our very first thing that we do is do a root cause analysis. What is your objective? Where do you want to be? And then we get a team together and say, all right, we would like to have a conversation with these individuals. And usually we need someone in HR to help us identify who those individuals are. And after the conversation, we can usually come up with where we're seeing whatever the root cause is that is creating whatever the objective is that they brought us in for. And so at that point, it might be that we meet. So one company that we're working with right now, we're starting with the executive leaders, because they will now be able to take and disseminate that to the rest of their people. We're going to go in and work with their individual teams as well. But if you start at the top, then you ensure that they have the tools in place to sort of be our eyes and ears and already start the change in the process in motion. When their buy-in is there and they're comfortable, they're more likely to show that when they are with us working with their teams. So it's fit for purpose. If I have a big Fortune 500 company or a Fortune 100 company, I've never met those CEOs, but I'll have met, whoever can have the most impact. Sometimes leaders aren't leaders, they're influencers. So it's important that we have the right champions in place to be creating the DH effect while we're creating the DH effect.
Nope, that makes complete sense, Hilary. Thank you for explaining that, because I always want to know. It's like, okay, where do we start this thing? Like, are there? I'm sure there's no rails on anything, but
It really, and especially, as you're asking that, we might go into a company, and we've been in companies before where we've identified and said, actually, this person here is toxic and it will not work if they're still there. and so that's a little bit scary sometimes as well. And that is, by the way, if Sonia and I ever say that, it is so rare, because we sort of believe in everybody. We believe we will give anybody a chance. We will work with you. We will do one-on-one coaching with you to get you comfortable and in a place. But if you are like, if the wall is there, and if I'm going to not just, disruption can be a positive thing, as you know, Mr. Disruptor.
Yeah.
It can be a
Yeah.
positive thing, but when disruption is purposeful to create toxicity, you can't do anything.
No, when you have those people that wall up and they just project and just put everything down. No, I get it. I get it. That's where it's when I see those people, when I'm doing the consulting, I proactively understand it. And then I coach, if I have people with me, I coach them through the scenario of what this person's going to do, because I already see it coming.
Yes.
And then it's like, feed in, buy in, don't get confrontational. Let's just see how it goes. And then once it happens, I got it. I will take the conversation in a different direction. You just focus on what you need to do.
That's so smart. I mean, it's so smart. And it's, Jesse, it's something that I really struggle with, that I don't understand. I do from the standpoint of humans, it's hard for us to have difficult conversations. But when I come into a company and I see that someone has been allowed to create this sort of toxic environment, I actually believe letting someone go is kinder, because the churn around them can't feel good to them either. And so it really is a fascinating thing to me to watch, like, wow, so this one individual and this piece of knowledge they may hold is worth sacrificing all of this, and that person isn't growing here either. And that could be a teachable moment for them. We actually love this skill about you, but we see that you're not ready to be a part of a team where you can support other people. We can have a conversation if that comes, but for now, we're going to have to ask that you're not a part of this team. That's their teachable moment. That's their opportunity to learn.
See, I don't know if you fired me, if I would thank you or be upset with you.
Actually, it's so funny that you should say that. I did have to break up with someone at one point, not a breakup, but it was a partnership, and he was the cutest thing afterwards. And we're still, like, I dearly love him and still do. And he literally said to me afterwards, he said, I feel like that's the best time I've ever had with a breakup ever. Like, how to, because you want to see other people. It's not about the other person being a bad person, and it doesn't have to be horrible. It's about, this doesn't fit. It's not working right now. Our boundaries aren't the same. The community agreements aren't working between the two of us. And that's okay. Find the soil that you can be planted in where you're going to bloom, because it's not here.
So calm. So calm.
Well, that's important. You're so
Absolutely.
observant. No, you're so observant. And I'll tell you something, that has come with wisdom, and age. Okay, wisdom is maybe the wrinkles, but the wisdom of age and the experiences, right? This isn't something I was born with. I have messed up a lot. I've messed up a lot in emotion. I am a very emotional person, super emotional. And that's a good thing, because it's what allows me to love other people. I mean, truly, unconditionally love other people. However, it can also get in my way. And so I've had to learn to discipline myself. And if I'm not in a place where I'm detached and compassionate, I don't have the conversation, and I can feel it. So I will say to someone, I would love to have this conversation. I can't do it right now. So when maybe give me 2 days, and then we can circle back on this.
Interesting. But that's what makes you you. And that's your purpose.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know we're running out of time here, so a few more things I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind. What was your thought on the EFC event that you were the featured speaker at?
I was so overwhelmed with the beautiful humanity of the people in front of us. I mean, the fact that you have brought these people together and said, I get we do business together, but what if we do life together? Like, what if we decide to have an impact and bring forward organizations that seriously need our help, whether it is financial, whether it is in spreading the word, and we can make a positive change and a difference. It is the most beautiful DH effect, decided heart effect. And I know it started with that moment with Laverne. So being a part of it and watching people speak so passionately about things that are near and dear to their heart, those stories will stay with you forever. So I hope anybody listening to this, if you haven't had a chance to get to one of those events, it is so worthwhile. And it's a chance to see your colleagues, your peers in a light that is so authentic and real.
Yeah, I know, and that's like the first one was an experiment, um, but they've kind of evolved and everything else. And to your exact point, it's like focusing on the human side of equipment finance, and then I just can't imagine not doing these, events moving forward.
I'm so grateful for I would call it idealism. Idealism is that you don't just dream the world can be better, you act to make it so. And that's what you show every day, Jesse.
Thanks, Hilary. Thank you. Thank you, Light, for not making me blush on camera. I appreciate you too. And then, I ask everyone who comes on here a little fun fact about themselves. So other than the fact that you're great at breaking up with people and they thank you for doing it, anything you'd like to share, Hilary, with the audience here?
Probably the one that surprises people the most is that I'm a black belt in Taekwondo.
I don't, interesting. Okay, let's talk about that. I think I had a guy, Kirk Phillips, who runs Wintrust Commercial Finance, said that about a month ago, and I was like,
Tell me more.
Right, tell me more.
I always say, if I only have a moment, what I always say to people is you feel a lot better when you know you have the opportunity to beat the crap out of people sometimes. So I'm just kidding. It really is a respect. But
that would be the fantastic lead-in where it's like, here's my bio. Oh, and by the way, here's my fun fact. I'm a black belt. Wait, what? You're gonna get those people's attention real quick. They're like, oh, okay.
So don't mess in the audience.
Jose, I said, listen, respect. Oh, that's awesome, Hilary. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I think our paths are going to cross at some upcoming conferences, so that's exciting too. And I'm sure we'll be having some DH Effect EFC collaboration at some point this year too.
I would love that. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for your ongoing service to the industry and the community as well. Really, thank you, Jesse.